On today's show, we talk about our thoughts on the Monster Hunter beta, play some trivia, and finally, where each of us began our Monster Hunter journey. So don't forget your hot drinks as we start this episode of the Palibros. Hit it, Ryan. What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Palibros, a podcast where a group of friends come together to talk about anything and everything Monster Hunter. Of course, I'm one of your hosts and the first to cart, Patrick Jovez, and alongside me in the blue corner, weighing at a staggering 22.5 pounds, standing at a staggering 6.6 feet tall, the Mixset Maniac, Brian.
How's it going, everyone?
I just blanked out. I don't know what I just said. Apparently you're 22 pounds.
That's bigger than some monsters in this game, so
yeah,
I'll take it.
There we go. And up next, we also have the hunting horn elitist, Max.
How's it going?
Hey, how you doing, Max?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here.
Great. And rounding us out, we have so tasty, Ryan.
Oh, tasty.
Of course, we want to thank Ryan for that great intro. You told him to hit up something on the spot, and he nailed it. He absolutely nailed that intro. So, yeah, here we are, guys. We're episode 1. We just started. How are we all feeling?
To be fair, I do sing that pretty much every time I talk to you guys. So lots of practice.
Yeah.
Like even not even just Monster Hunter. It'll be like talking about completely different stuff, and I'll do that to you guys. So I'm glad I get to finally use that skill in a proper setting.
Yeah.
All that practice paid off.
Seriously. He's like
not kidding.
He really is it. It is.
It's every game.
Hey, you guys want to play some Rocky Cars?
Wrong theme, but we'd love it.
Yeah.
I did do Helldivers for a little bit, just for like a very short period.
Oh, Helldivers is such a good fucking diving, like when you go to the planets. I don't have room to talk because I've only played like 20 hours, but it's so cool. Maybe we'll do a Helldivers podcast if it has a resurgence.
I got the intro. You just let me know.
We got all the sound. Every sound you hear throughout this podcast is just gonna be Ryan.
A man of many talents.
I tried to convince Pat to make the whole thing a cappella, but I think we'll get there. I'll convince him.
Yeah, we got episode 2 for sure.
And let it be known first that we were the ones to talk about maybe a Helldivers 2 Monster Hunter crossover, maybe almost like Metal Gear Solid when they did that.
Oh,
that would be sick,
okay.
right?
All right,
Hunting some monsters.
All right, hold on.
I might spend some super credits on a Rathalos armor.
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, let me remind you that this is the Palibros podcast, where each and every episode we try to keep you up to date on the latest Monster Hunter news, play Monster Hunter trivia, and talk about one of our favorite franchises. So don't forget, you can get each and every episode on youtube.com/KrabbyPatty. And if you like what we do, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing this video with friends, and hitting that bell icon to help support us and to know when each of the latest videos drops. With all that out the way, let's begin with the latest in Monster Hunter news. Hey fellow hunters, Patrick here. Just wanted to warn you that throughout this episode, I had been getting over a recent illness, so some of the coughs and stuff had made their way into the final cut despite muting my mic on Discord, but not the recording. So I just wanted to personally apologize for that, and due to the lack of time and my editing skills, I was unable to fully clean up the audio as best as I'd like, but don't worry. This issue shouldn't happen again in the future, so thanks for understanding, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this episode. Hey, it fucking works!
I like it. We love that sound.
Today in Monster Hunter News, we have 2 stories. Of course, our first story is a second Monster Hunter beta is on the rise. Of course, this information comes to you by Josh Kotz over there at GameRant.com. The article reads, Hunters rejoice. Capcom has officially announced the arrival of a second open beta test for Monster Hunter Wilds in February. The first round of Monster Hunter Wilds' second open beta test will take place from February 6th at 7 p.m. to February 9th at 6:59 p.m. Pacific time. while the second round of the test will begin on February 13th at 7 p.m. and conclude on February 16th at 6:59 p.m. Pacific time. Of course, this is great news, especially for those who missed out on the first open beta test for Monster Hunter Wilds. However, it does come with a downside, which is the result of the Monster Hunter Wilds second open beta test using the same build as the first. What do we think, you guys?
I think it'll be an interesting experience, especially for those like myself, where I'm currently running a computer with an RTX 3080 with 10 gigabytes of VRAM, and I had some pretty serious performance issues, and it's my understanding that those may not be fully addressed in this build, but because I'm looking at potentially picking up one of the 50 series cards, even though it's not on the most current build, it should be an interesting experience in terms of getting a dry run, running the previous build on a newer set of hardware, perhaps.
Right.
I think we'll hear a lot of different takes on the performance bit. It's probably what people are most used to hearing online as well. But the fact that we get to play again, it seems like that was the primary focus for them releasing this beta. And if it means they can take the time to put that towards the full build and not waste time on maybe getting another build of the beta going, it's understandable. But it is a little frustrating because I think there's a lot of folks that we're going on their word that they're fixing things, and to not be able to see that, proof, there's always going to be a little bit of concern, especially with those on older hardware.
Right.
Brian and I, talked about this over the weekend, so our sentiments are pretty much the same. But, I think and agree that, the same slice is better than them taking that time to build a whole nother slice and wasting it. And I'd rather them just spend it on actually getting the game ready to go, because, people have been burned by a lot of stuff. I mean, there's been plenty of alphas and betas and stuff that have come out the last couple of years, and people are like, oh, well, it's just a work in progress. And then the game comes out and it's like basically the same game. And you're like, oh, we should have known in hindsight, but we kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, Battlefield was probably the last big one, I think, that had that problem where they're like, oh, it's half done, but that's fine. This is an early version. They told us that this version is 8 months old or whatever, and then the game came out almost exactly the same. So definitely some trepidation, but I think it's better use of their time. I'd much rather them kind of crack the whip at the end. Well, not crunch or anything, but I'd rather them spend the time that they do have to put the polish on it that they can in the time they have left.
I would like to add that it's not going to be exactly the same as the first build, according to the Capcom announcement that they are planning on having at least the Gypsaros will be huntable in the beta, as well as new content that they are claiming will be released at a later time, which we don't currently know what that is. But that should be interesting. I mean, I don't think we've been able to hunt the Gypsaros since...
Is this going to be the
Generations Ultimate? It's been quite some time since Gypsaros has been in a mainline game.
Now, is this going to be the regular Gypsaros, or is it going to be the torquing Gypsaros? Does anyone know? Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
No,
I do not.
I know that tail wag it does.
Yeah, that is. It is now being dubbed as the torquing Gypsaros across Reddit boards all over.
I was gonna say, is that a you thing or?
I was under the impression that they were all twerking Gypsaros, if that's the case.
Okay, Max is like, what do you guys talking? This is just normal. This is part of their kit.
Main move.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, because my life is so busy with work and school and kids and all other things, it's great that we are getting a second beta, because I technically have only played maybe one mission of the beta because just all the stuff that I had to do. So I am pretty stoked that this is coming back out, and I'm gonna get a chance to actually play a lot more with you guys. The thing is, the timing. It just kind of trips me up because betas are there to kind of figure out all of these issues with the game prior to it releasing, and it's literally gonna be releasing 2 weeks after the beta end dates. Or beta date ends. So
in a traditional sense, they are.
Yeah.
I think there's also a marketing component where they want to get people interested in the game, and That's why they've
That's
added
true.
the extra rewards for
Yep.
participating in the beta. I mean,
That's right.
They've
there's
said
a,
that, I think, explicitly,
weapon
right?
pendant that's exclusive to the second beta that you can get by participating.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
mean, there are incentives to play the beta, even if you've played the first one.
Yeah.
You know, there is the Gypsaros, there's a new weapon pendant,
Mhm.
and I believe there's a bonus item pack that you get by playing the second beta, which
Yeah.
is mostly utility items like some pitfall traps and raw meat, trank bombs, but
Mhm.
it's still something.
And this time around, are we all going to be trying this on? Well, except for Ryan, are we all going to be trying this on our PCs?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
I'll be the cornerstone of the console
Yeah.
You're gonna be the
perspective.
console specialist through all of our
Yeah.
content. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, we'll get a different perspective at least.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, if you guys have never tried the Monster Hunter beta or never even played Monster Hunter, I suggest you guys go ahead and pick it up. It's going to be lots of fun. You get to see what we're all talking about and everything that we geek out over this franchise that we've played for many, many years. And yeah, we hope you enjoy that. And let's move on to our second story, which is how the Monster Hunter Wilds team selected the monsters for this upcoming entry. Of course, this article comes from IGN.com and is written by Casey DeFreitas and Shuka Yamada. In the interview with Kaname Fujioka, who was the director of the first Monster Hunter and now executive director and art director for Wilds, and Yuya Tokuda, director of both Monster Hunter Worlds and Wilds, we get to hear in detail about the process that new and returning monsters went through before appearing in Wilds, with a special focus on the process of creation and selection. Throughout the interview, I felt the deep love that these developers have for their monsters, as well as the ceaseless work they've put into giving those monsters the greatest stage possible. Tokuda first explains the process that goes into the creation of a Monster Hunter monster. Quote, "We first consider what we want players to experience when facing major monsters like Arkveld, as well as the setting, ecosystem, and so on of the world, unique to each title. We then think about the kind of monsters needed to do that. In a way, we start by putting puzzle pieces together, like, if this monster exists in this place, how does the ecological pyramid work here?" End quote. It's easy to simply think that players will be happy so long as popular monsters make a reappearance, but the development team actually focuses most on the player's experience. Quote, "We don't focus too much on the proportion or number of the new versus old monsters. What's important at the end of the day is the overall level design and order of the monsters across the entire game, as well as the balance of ecological pyramids in each area. We take this multifaceted approach to decide which monsters to include." End quote. How will players play the game, and when will they encounter each monster? What we will see monsters doing in the latest title enabled by new technology. Fujioka says that this approach is extremely important, even when choosing to have older monsters make a reappearance. Quote, "So even when selecting old monsters to put in the game, part of that involves making sure to stay true to that monster's concept while thinking about how much room each monster has to grow when they're reborn using our current day technology and game design." End quote. Of course, for the full article, you should head on over to IGN.com and give them the click. But for now, what's your guys' thoughts?
I can go ahead and start. I think what was amazing about that article was just the detail in which they discovered or talked about just the amount of love and care that they have for the monsters. They truly are, and they say this in the article, the main characters in the game, even more so beyond the players that we take control of. And there's a lot of care and attention to detail that goes into them for each game. So it was really cool to hear a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, that seems to be like the main focus, even across even when Monster Hunter goes across mediums and goes to movies. Like, they knew going in that the monsters were going to be the main stars of the show. So it's really cool that, you know, they put all this love and attention even in recurring monsters that we've seen, and now they're like, okay, how has this monster evolved for this entry of the franchise?
So I sort of feel like there's a lot of flowery language, and I think it's an interesting article. I do think that there's sort of potentially they might have their finger on the scale a little bit in certain cases when they're picking monsters to include. I mean, if you look at like there's a popularity poll that they did recently across all the monsters that have ever been part of a Monster Hunter game, and there was well over 200. You know, I think they're probably leaning pretty heavily towards some of the monsters towards the top of that list. Especially, you know, Zinogre has made an appearance in pretty much every one of the last Monster Hunter games for quite some time, and I know Zinogre has a pretty overwhelming popularity in Japan. But I mean, even then, it's interesting to look through those popularity polls because you have stuff like Chris, who hasn't been around for quite some time, it still has a very high presence in terms of the polls.
Right. Capcom loves doing those polls because I don't know if you know, on a quick tangent, they did this poll for their older franchises of games. And I took that poll like last year, and it was like, oh, what games would you like to see? I was like, Beautiful Joe and Okami. And now look. We got
it was you.
Yeah.
And that poll got overrun by the Regina fans for Dino Crisis.
Oh man. Yeah. They ended up getting that one dinosaur game instead.
One thing I'd like to add on this topic of selecting older monsters is I think there's an interesting opportunity here for them to potentially look at older monsters that might fit into the new systems in the game, specifically like the herd system, which they've talked about it. As of right now, I think the only new monster that really fits into that is the Doshiguma, with sort of the alpha Doshiguma and the herd of the smaller ones that follow around it. So I think it would be interesting for them to look at potentially older monsters that might fit into that framework. For one that had come to mind for me might be like the Celtis, for example, which hasn't come around for a while, and that's something where you might have like a queen Celtis and then a bunch of smaller, the male Celtis following her around. It might not be a herd per se, but it's more like a swarm or sort of a group of large monsters in the same way. So I think there's opportunities for them to adapt to the new systems with using old monsters.
Well, and it has existed in some regard, right? Velociprey, Velocidromes, that kind of dynamic, and some of like the monsters that are clearly just there to get you meat, you know, for your stamina. Is that what the monster you're referring to, Max? The kind of Stegosaurus esque?
No, the Celtis is like a flying insect, and so the female Celtis queen is the very large enemy, whereas the Celtis is more like on the level. It's a large monster that's like on the level of more like a Velocidrome, kind of like a starter monster. It's not incredibly threatening, but they have an interesting dynamic where the two of them. I don't believe you didn't play Generations or 4 Ultimate. I don't recall. So it's they kind of like pair together. And they fight together. It's an interesting monster that hasn't appeared in quite some time, but this could be like one interesting idea that came to my mind in terms of how, like they mentioned in the article, sort of bringing back an old monster and seeing how they can retool it and put it in new systems.
There's definitely a lot of potential there because there's similar parallels even in early iterations of the game that follow this kind of like group dynamic that aren't necessarily threatening on their own. So.
Yeah, and
it's also I'm sorry, I don't want to take over the conversation.
No, please.
It's also a careful balancing act because oftentimes, at least for me personally, fighting a lot of monsters at once is annoying. And so once you start having like a large monster and then a lot of small monsters, you end up with the Bullfango problem.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Where it's kind of like you're trying to focus on your actual target and you're just being swarmed by smaller enemies that are annoying.
Yeah, all the ads.
And I mean, that's kind of what, at least in the first beta, you know, that's what the role that dung bombs have evolved into.
Right.
It's just sort of separate out your target.
Yeah, I didn't really get the sense, at least, that we were getting overrun in the beta. I think they've probably designed it in a way that like there's this ecological hierarchy, and so once the big monster comes around, the rest of them who might otherwise pick on you as a group are like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go.
It's possible to get yourself into that situation in the first beta, where there could be multiple Doshiguma or multiple monsters attacking you, but it's easily solvable, at least with this dung bomb.
Yeah, I think also we're a little desensitized to this. I mean, I'm sure if you're new to the franchise, like you saw the whole, like if you saw a giant open field of just dozens of different monsters, you'd be like, whoa. But for us, we have no problems, you know, sprinting past the monster we're supposed to hunt and go find the big baddie in the corner just to see if we can.
Where he's at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Me and Brian did that multiple times. So it's like, go hunt the Doshiguma. We're like, nah, we're good. And we just run past him. We're like, where's the Raidao? Where is he? But just thinking about the the concept of, being carefully selecting all of these monsters, the main kind of thing that came to mind for me, at least, was character design, because obviously so much of Monster Hunter history has kind of fallen within a certain aesthetic. And even when it diverges slightly, kind of like Rise was supposed to be more like, Japanese folklore and design, it still kind of fit within an overarching kind of visual language, but they went really weird on this one. So it'd be interesting. We already seen how it kind of matches up, but it kind of almost feels weird to look at a Rathalos next to what's the kind of sludge monster that they have with like the kind of bulbous face. That one was definitely one of the creepier, weirder ones. And I think they even said in other interviews they were going for kind of creepy and like hypernatural, like not as stylized monsters. So as they're thinking about bringing in older monsters, that's kind of my thought. It's like, I wonder if there's going to be like a clash visually. Going to be weird to see some of these like more classic Monster Hunter monsters next to the kind of the
Literally
design
garbage monster.
Yeah,
the Pokemon problem.
I think the sort of gooey looking strange monster you're thinking of is called the Rompapolo.
I think you're right. Yes.
I'm gonna look them. I'm personally not a huge fan of some of the new monster designs compared to some of the older ones. It seems kind of strange to me.
Yeah,
it's kind of.
My initial reaction was much more negative. It's grown on me, and especially because it seems there is a thread there. It's not just like 2 or 3 of them are like bad. It's like, no, they all look this very specific way. And I think that kind of makes it better, like, oh, this is like very intentional. They're going for something here. But if there was only one monster that looked like that, it'd be like, what happened?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a balance, because some of these kinds of monsters did sort of exist in the older games, but if you kind of had, there's always kind of a weird line when you start getting into like Elder Dragon territory, where they talk in the interview about how they want everything to sort of fit into its own ecological niche. Like, how does this monster inhabit the world? And I think that some of that kind of potentially falls apart once you start looking at some of the strange Elder Dragons. Like, if you go jump back to like Nakarkos, who a lot of people have compared to the new monster's name. I can't.
Fire.
Right.
Lava. Not even lava. Just Seriously.
Where, I mean, on a certain level, you can kind of break down Nakarkos, where it's like, oh, it's like a cuttlefish, and then it raises a lot of questions that I think some of those older monsters are a little bit strange, but nothing is as strange to me as some of the new designs, like Rompapolo in particular, which is a little off-putting to me, but I might feel differently after I fought it and have more experience with it in game.
And you're like, if the armor is cool, then all is forgiven.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, what can I get off of this?
So what you're telling me is that you're not going to be buying any of those Rompapolo little,
plushies,
figurines or plushies to keep in your closet or in your bed, Roger.
Yeah, is there any particular monsters you guys want to see coming back or making a return that hasn't already been announced, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I, Pat, already talked about how Nargacuga is one of our favorites.
Yep,
I don't think that's been announced yet. I love the design is incredible. I love its kind of like agility.
Yeah,
it's very fun to fight because you really have to be on your toes, and especially as someone who like mains Greatsword for most of my Monster Hunter career, it was a pain in my ass. But that's what made it fun, was to really know exactly when the 2-second window I had to smack it was.
Yeah. And learning all your iframes based off of just being a greatsword player for something as agile as an Nargacuga is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're
very
like,
rewarding.
yeah, very rewarding. Yeah, like you said, such a great design. The Lucent Nargacuga is fun as well too. Just great aesthetic. Yeah, personally for me, I would like to see. I really love like the Japanese like fish kind of monsters, like the Plesioth. Like, it's like a Japanese aesthetic where it's just like the fish head and like just the blank circular eye, like it's just all white. I think it's just such a funny comical look that's terrifying in Monster Hunter, because then you get hit with the hip check with the invisible nutsack, and you're just like, what the hell did I get hit by?
That better be a feature in the new engine if they bring that monster back.
Yeah, but
and
also
the angry fan mail thing that you willed this, you brought this upon us,
well,
Pat.
Yeah, what was it? It was the Plesioth hip check, and like it was like the Rathalos toenail or something that we kept getting us when it was diving in. But Max did bring up
over.
Yeah, Tigrix. Max did bring up a monster that I do really want to see again, which is the Lagiacrus. Like, I think that is such a cool looking monster. It is, and I don't know. I know water fights are just the worst, but I wouldn't mind trying another water fight again. Maybe they
can make a version where it's not in water, because obviously that's not a part of this game.
Yeah.
So maybe there's just like a land version that you can fight, and they make it more like the Mitsutsume.
Yeah, they had that too. So yeah, lots of fun. I just think that monster was very cool looking. I love the color. I love the armor set of what it looks like, and yeah, definitely cool monster.
I know that there was issues, as far as I understand it, regarding the skeleton, the Leviathan type monsters. So like they had issues porting the Lagiacrus into the engine or the systems that they were using in Monster
I never heard
World.
that. That's cool.
That's great.
So like the way, because a lot of the monsters interact with the terrain in like a really specific ways, and so it was harder for them to implement it, as far as I understand it, as opposed to some of the other, like, where there's a lot more verticality and climbing, and some of the older games, it's basically every area is basically flat, so it's very easy to have that kind of serpentine Leviathan type monster. I mean, I hope that's one of the monsters I certainly hope to see as well. If I were to list off some my meme choices would be like a Gobel or something.
I was hoping someone would say that.
Gobel, or like a Queen Vespoid, it's like a real deep cut.
Which one's the Gobel again?
That was in the only game it's ever been in is Try and 3 Ultimate, which it was like the lanternfish with like it's sit on the floor and with the little dangling light.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my god, I forgot about that one. Oh man.
Many people have. It's waiting for a comeback. It's in the wings.
It could happen.
Yeah, it could happen. And with the way that Monster Hunter sets up their DLC and stuff like that, like they could literally bring back any monster. So it's really cool that they have such a history of monsters that they can bring back, and they have such variety. Like I personally would like to see that. Oh man, I'm forgetting. It's like a giant snake. I think they introduced it in.
It's a Najarala.
That one's fucking cool.
Oh wait, no, you might be thinking of not Najarala.
The big.
You might be thinking,
Lagiacrus.
Yeah.
The one that was so large that had multiple carved zones, kind of like bringing back Lao Shan.
Yeah, you're thinking of the Dalamadur.
Yes,
which it has been a while.
Well, when was the last time we saw that? Was that World?
Might be Generations Ultimate.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it was that. I think that was in Freedom. Was that in Freedom Unite? What game was it in?
So.
No, it was not.
I thought it was.
No, it was only in 4 Ultimate.
Like
4 Ultimate and then Generations.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely.
Or was it only in 4 Ultimate? I'm struggling to remember.
We've seen. There's been mention that the bone structure visible in the in that map in World
in the Rotten Vale.
Rotten Vale,
yeah,
is an old skeleton carcass of that monster.
Oh man,
which is pretty cool.
That's freaking cool. Environmental storytelling.
I would say for me, for the audio listeners here that can't see, I am wearing a Best Boy Zinogre shirt. So I would love to see Zinogre brought back. I mean, we were talking about how the monster has generally always been in many of the games since Portable Third. So one of my favorites. Love the design, love the sound, loved even just the tight hitboxes and playing it. It just feels like Nargacuga, a very fun monster to learn iframes and the ability to dodge. So I would love to see that. I would love to see Gormagala again. That would be really cool to see if there was any type of viral element to this game as well with its status effect.
Oh, so it's the fucking worst.
It was cool. It had a gameplay mechanic where you could get a buff from it. It was cool.
Yeah. All right.
So one more that comes to mind. One more that comes to mind. Anjanath. I don't know why.
No, that's a good one. That's a good starter one. It reminds me of like Baroth. Like it's a good starter monster to get people like enjoying the game, and it's definitely cool looking. Oh, is there ever a game where there isn't a Devil Joe?
Ooh,
because we
had it in World.
Yeah, we had it in World.
Was it in what?
Rise?
I don't think it was in Rise.
It wasn't.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, we need the Devil
yeah.
Joe back, baby. We need that
Yeah,
pickle.
Man, I don't know. So my trauma.
Bring that and the Kuropeko back.
The
We can call it in
Kuropeko.
at a
Yeah.
early mission.
Oh,
So
man.
I want to add in, so I had my meme picks earlier.
Mhm.
I don't think they're actually going to bring Gobo back because it really only works underwater.
Right.
Because it's kind of like a joke on land,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the interesting dynamic of the fight is that it goes from being like a menace to kind of a pushover.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I would kind of want to see Nursilla again.
Yes,
Ooh.
The
Nursilla.
spider monster from 4 Ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they really would bring it back because
Well, they have a spider monster already announced for the new one, so
that's kind of why. I don't know how they probably might overlap too much.
Yeah.
Like Monster Hunter Rise
Not to s-
had Monster Hunter
not to say
Rise
that we
had
don't have 10
Raknikadaki.
dragons.
I know, but it's kind of
yeah.
like a niche thing. Like Rise had Raknikadaki, which is already
Mhm.
kind of like a spider monster.
Yeah.
And this has, I think it's Lalabarina
Yeah.
in Wilds, so it's kind of like even aesthetically, like the outline of the monster looks very similar to Nursilla in terms of like the spindly legs and how it kind of stands up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know that they would bring Nursilla back, unless
It's
you
hard
know,
to-
unless it's like using the same skeleton or like rig
Mm-hmm.
for animations would make it easier for them to do that.
Yeah, they
And it would
probably.
be the
hard.
case of like this like Nursilla might be like the low rank or whatever, an easier form,
Mm.
and you fight Lalabrina as like the high rank
The
menace.
silhouette is just so distinct of like a shape of a spider. It's like, yeah, it'd be hard to distinguish multiples. At least dragons, you can kind of make different shapes and sizes and have different things added to them to make them slightly unique. But yeah, I think there's probably too much visual overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, they have a whole bag of monsters to go through, so it'll be interesting to see what they bring come full release of Monster Hunter Wilds. But yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever we see, and hopefully some of our picks make it. And I'd be pleasantly surprised if there are other ones. There are some main it would be pretty weird to see if like some main like Zenogres or something doesn't make it and see what takes its
Mhm.
place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I'd be curious to hear what any listeners out there might want to. What monsters is everyone else looking forward to?
yeah, definitely. If you guys made it to this part, go ahead and hit up the comment section and tell us what monsters you want to see in the upcoming Monster Hunter Wilds entry. And with all that being said, that is it for the news segment. And now, fellow hunters, the time has come, and so have I. That's right, it is time for Monster Hunter Trivia. On this episode of the Palibros, we're going to be playing Shrieks and Geeks. In this game, Brian, Max, and Ryan will try to guess each of the monsters based on their monster's roar. This game will consist of 3 rounds, and the first person to say the answer correctly will be awarded the point. Actually, I shouldn't have read that. We just went over prior to the show how we're going to run it. So I'm going to go ahead and play the monster's roar, and we're going to go down the line. It'll go Brian, Max, Ryan. You guys will all take your guess based off of what you guys hear, and then at the end I will go ahead and say what the monster is and who gets the point. If at any time both of you guys or all 3 of you guys get the point, then we keep it from there. No more first come first serve thing. It's kind of hard to figure out over Discord anyways. So we'll just keep the tallies going. Whoever is correct gets it, and whoever is incorrect does not get the point. With that being said, Monster Hunter Trivia is going to be a recurring segment of our podcast, so we'll try to keep a tally of who scores what points during each episode, and we'll tally it up all after 10 episodes. We're going to try and figure out who is the winner. What does the winner get?
Max.
Hey man, he's probably studied the most.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a little bit of practice in the last couple of days, but who knows?
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. I'm gonna try to make this one a little bit easier on you guys as we go along with each episode, depending on if
Pat,
we're playing this. Yep.
Can I suggest something on the fly here?
Yeah.
And as someone who's probably not going to win, this is probably not good for me. I think the winner should get to re-nickname someone or both the other two people for one
For
episode.
the next
at
episode.
least.
That's good. That's a good one.
Ooh.
Whoever wins gets to pick the name of or pick the nickname of the other two for one episode.
Does it has to be Monster Hunter related though, right? Like it just can't be like fart bitch or something, right?
I don't know. Look, I'll leave it up to whoever wins his discretion or your discretion, but
Okay.
All
right,
add a little
yeah.
stakes.
Yeah, we'll have some stakes.
Oh shit! Lock in.
Yeah, let's do that. So,
Please don't call me fart bitch. I would cry.
You brought this upon yourself.
Yes.
all right. And then also, if this goes horribly, horribly wrong and no one can guess any of the things and there's no points given, I do have a backup plan. We'll call an audible and we'll be playing one more game. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and start with our first monster. You guys ready?
Oh, let's see.
I'm ready to fail spectacularly after you all hype me up.
Here, let's just play the first monster stone. Ready?
Hmm. It's. I've heard it. I know I've heard it. I'm having a hard time picturing
That's
it.
definitely a good sign.
Okay, I think. Play it one more time.
I will tell you a little something about this after I play it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, due to Discord's limits on sound bites, they only allow up to 5 seconds, so I did have to trim this and kind of cut it in certain areas so I could get the
Mhm.
meat of the roar.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and I will give you guys the first letter of this monster so that we have something to go off of, because I feel like because you guys don't get the full entire roar, you guys should get a little handout.
Okay. For the first one.
So the first letter of this monster starts with a B.
Okay.
I'm glad, because if you were going to give me a completely different letter, I was.
It's a Q.
I was.
Like, what the
very
fuck is
certain
that?
that I had it down. So.
Okay. Let's start with Brian. What do you think that this
Okay.
monster is?
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that it is our favorite train moving, fast bulldozing monster. It's the Baroth,
Okay.
our mud friend.
Brian locks in his answer with the Baroth. Max, what do you think?
I think I'm gonna go the same. I was kind of thinking Barioth maybe, but I think that's a Bareth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is the mud one. I guess Barioth being the ice.
The roars are kind of similar when you play them
Mhm.
side by side, but
Mm-hmm.
many of the roars are.
All right.
I mean, I lock in Baroth, yeah.
All right, Max locks in Baroth as well. Ryan,
I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna go Beetlejuice Bagel Guys.
the B. Oh, don't say it another time.
Oh.
It's gonna appear.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The
Not
Basil.
3 times.
Did we ever come up with
Geese?
Yeah, is it Basil
the bomber
geese?
bomber boy.
Basil geese. Yeah, the big
Basil
bomber.
geese. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna lock that one in?
You seem surprised by even the mention of that monster, so I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. But go ahead.
I mean, that could be it though.
It could be it.
Yeah, but the guy who pulled the sound was like, "Oh, I haven't thought about that monster in forever. That's a great monster." So, but for the sake of the game, I'm just gonna go with it.
Mixing it up, I like it. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Brian and Max locking in the Baroth, with Ryan going rogue with the Basil geese. And the answer is
Either.
it is in fact the Baroth.
Let's go.
This one I really wanted to include, and it was just that 5 second limit was just so tough. But I was like, I need to include this one. It's not too difficult. You guys will get it. Brian, you mentioned that you had something locked in prior to me giving you the hint. What did you
Mhm.
have?
So Baroth was what I locked in.
Wow.
And it's what I thought it was. And I have to thank all of our time with the mobile Monster Hunter game that we were playing
Oh, right.
months, a year
Monster
over a
Hunter
year ago,
Now.
'cause Monster Now, we saw that thing so many times that how I hear it so often.
By the way, this
Um,
episode of the Palibros is brought to you by
it's brought
Monster
to
Hunter
you.
Now.
Yes, go play it. Download
Eventually.
it.
Thanks, Capcom
Mm-hmm.
and Niantic. Yep.
for the early support.
All right. With that, we have Brian at 1 point, Max at 1 point, and I'll give Ryan a tip of the hat for being different and going with basil juice. Basil beagle juice.
Bagels.
Yep.
Bagel bites.
Oh, bros.
Bagel bites. All right. You guys ready for round 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Monster number 2.
Ooh.
huh?
You guys want to hear that one
Ooh.
more time?
Please.
Yeah. Play it like half speed, will you?
Bagel guys.
Okay, here we go again.
I'm hearing almost like some wings in the background or some sort of. Ooh.
I'm gonna give it to you guys one more time, and then
That's
we'll
it,
see
okay.
what you guys can formulate. Here we go.
Yeah. Wow.
What are
That
we
is a tough
thinking,
one.
Brian?
That was
What
a
do you
tough
got?
one.
What are you hearing? Where's your mind at?
I'm gonna guess something weird, something real weird. Gravios.
Gravios, the hulking stone monster,
Mm-hmm.
the one that one-shotted me when I was loading into the screen.
Yep, back when we had loadable areas.
Fuck that guy! Oh my god!
Mhm.
All right, is that your final answer, or would you like to hear it one more time?
I'm gonna lock it in. It's either I'm locking it in. There's another one I think it might be, but I'm locking it in.
Okay, so Brian locks Gravios in. Max, would you like to hear it one more time?
Please. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit lost on this one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
First of all, never mind.
No,
I can't ask for any hints here in terms of like what game this is from. The audio for the roar is captured from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just give your best
yeah,
guess.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I'm struggling to think of anything that has kind of flapping with that sort of same. I'm gonna say Barioth. I'm just gonna throw out a random monster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you ready to lock that in?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead with Barioth for Max. And Ryan, would you like to hear it one last time?
It's okay.
All right,
I think I've formulated my thoughts on it.
he's nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Well, first off, thinking about the wing flap being so present makes me think it's obviously predominantly like flying or having to do with flying, and the fact that it's very menacing makes me think that it might be more draconic in design.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess will be Kusladora because
Yeah, that's good.
the wing flap being so prominent in its roar makes me think it's like focusing like the sound designers are like, oh, we want this like the wing flap to be so prominent because he's the wind dragon basically. So
Yeah.
Kusladora is my answer.
All right, so we have Brian locking in Gravios, Max locking in, what was it?
Barioth?
Barioth. I almost said Bullfango. And Ryan with Kushala-Dora. That, my friends, is the sound of a great Jagras.
We weren't even close with the wings. Was that just its stomach making the sound?
You guys, I would say you guys are getting kind of close of like, you guys hear wings. What you're hearing is like a flapping noise, and that's probably of like the sack that like blows up. It's
There's some other monster flying in the background.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
You guys definitely. It's cool though. You guys definitely are picking up some sort of like extra sound when you guys are hearing. It's not just a roar. You're like, okay, I'm thinking it has something to do with wind. You guys are building off each other. This is going a lot better than I thought. I was kind of expecting to just be like fucking deer in the headlights. Just like, I don't know what the hell
It's
any of these are.
kind of interesting because for as big of a part of like iconic as Great Jaguars is in Monster Hunter World, I feel like compared to so many other monsters, the average player doesn't fight it nearly as often as a lot of like the Elder Dragons or other monsters. So it
That's a good point.
kind of slips under the radar a little bit relative to the end game of Elder Dragon farming, where
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. We definitely hit up Great Jaguars a lot in the beginning. So, all right. So right now we are still locked at Brian with 1 point, Max with 1 point, and Ryan with a tip of the hat. I'm liking a lot of Ryan's answers though. Like you guys are, Brian and Max are getting pretty close, but I like the
wild card,
the
baby.
wild card baby moments that Ryan's bringing.
Just give me some red yarn and a bunch of thumbtacks and a big map.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to our last monster.
Redemption. Let's go.
Here we go.
Okay. I have. Okay.
Max looks like he's locked in already.
You locked it in.
Okay. Would you guys like to hear it one more time, or are you guys ready to go?
I think I'm just ready to go. What do you think?
I'm ready whenever, if you guys are.
Ryan?
Okay.
I'll ask for it one more time when it's my turn to answer.
Go ahead, Brian. What do you think monster number 3 is?
I hope I can say it correctly because I haven't seen the name in a while. It is our weird, similar to Jagras, blowing up neck flying wyvern. It's a Palumu, is my guess. I'm going to go with that.
You locking that in?
Yeah, I'm going to lock it in. I feel a little weird about it, but that's what rang to me.
All right. Brian locks in Palumu. Max, what are you going with?
I'm also going to lock in Paolumu, though I don't know if I can distinguish between, the Nightshade Paolumu and the normal Paolumu. I'm not sure if there's a difference.
I thought the same thing, but I'm like, Pat wouldn't do that to us. Would he?
Or would I?
Would he? We don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know. Ryan, are we going to venture off, or what are we thinking?
Give it to me one more time.
All right, here we go. Monster number 3.
Yeah, that's nonsense. I don't know what that is.
that is not a real thing. You made that one up.
No, what struck me from the sound design perspective is that it sounds very like salivatory, like he's like got something, like it's almost like a monster that might be spitting something up, like it's got some sort of spray attack or something.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go with the answer that I thought in my head before they said anything. I'm sure I'll gain a point by following Brian and Max, but I don't want to win the cheap way. If I know the answer, I'll know it. I'm not gonna. So I'm gonna go Brachydios because he's got the slimy fists and he's a slime monster. Even though I'm pretty sure it's wrong, I'm just going based off of what the sound design evokes for me and the closest monster I can think of to it. So locking in Brachydios.
Okay. Ryan is locking in Brachydios. Brian and Max both lock in Palumu. And the answer to this roar it is actually a clicker from the last of it.
Oh, I knew it. That crossover was a good one.
Nope. Max and Brian are both correct. It is indeed the Palumu. And
Good
Ryan,
for you. Good for you.
You ready to get your name changed?
Oh, no.
oh
I want to
man,
regret that 1 point like a couple episodes from now that I just threw away. Be like 1 point behind, and then
congratulations, you played yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that actually went a lot better than I thought it would. It's really cool to see that you guys can use your detective skills to figure things out.
I'm not gonna lie, if I didn't have some prep time, that would have been pretty tough.
It would have been hard.
Batman. Yeah, no,
I didn't study at all.
when Ryan said
Show.
at least you're consistent.
Yeah.
When you said Bezel Geese, I like I remember exactly what that thing sounds like in my head, and I'm like, oh wow, that's not this monster at all, but wow.
You let it known verbally. You could hear it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and tally all that up. Congrats to Brian and Max for this round of Shrieks and Geeks. So far, the totals for each of the contestants is as follows. In first place, tied, is actually Max and Brian, both with 2 points each. And in last place, but with a tip of a hat, we have Ryan with 0 points. But
yeah.
it's still anyone's game.
Mhm.
Let's definitely hope for episode 2 is your comeback.
Thank you. For someone who's pretty in tune with sound, I was not on top of it, so.
It's all good. And of course, if you hear that sound, hunters, you know that it means we are all ready to head into our topic of the show. And our topic today is, where did we each begin our Monster Hunter journey, and how did our first experience with that entry go? I'd like to start with Max, actually.
Sure. So my first Monster Hunter game was actually Monster Hunter Freedom 1 on the PSP. And I didn't make it incredibly far in the game. I was pretty young. I kind of bounced off the armor system at that point. I found it to be very unintuitive. I didn't really understand how the points put together and how to optimize armor sets. I got bodied by the Yankutku. That was like my first real wall in the series. I didn't make it to endgame, but I enjoyed it a lot. I picked up Monster Hunter Freedom 2, so I want to say that like my first real entry into the series was Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, which I played a lot, and I done pretty much everything you can do in it, including the final invitation and the dual Rajang in the arena, which is pretty awful. But so the technical answer is Freedom 1, but I would say like in my heart, it's probably Freedom Unite.
And what were some of the challenges with Freedom 1? Like, is there anything specific? Were you just too young to kind of understand what was going on?
I was young, but it's also, there's just a lot to learn in the Monster Hunter games when you start out, especially in some of the older titles.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot of systems, understanding crafting. Oh, I need to have the crafting books to actually craft potions. The systems, which are kind of, many of which have been these games have been a little bit more streamlined as this titles have become more refined over time, and some of this is pain points have been removed. But I remember for the young me at the time, and I was still in middle school at the time, so I had a hard time just getting into it, understanding the systems, and I had to learn patience.
Yeah, the old Monster Hunter games definitely will test your patience. Ryan, let's go with you.
Mine was similar. Yeah, which one?
Ryan, the third place.
Perfect.
Oh damn, you will not.
Oh, ouch.
You know, I could have softball my way into a tie there, but you know, okay.
You could have, but you didn't.
Yeah. Wild card, baby.
I respect your integrity, Ryan.
And who knows? You might get the extra star for that tip of the hat later on. Who knows?
Okay,
we're playing Mario
at the
Party
end of
rules.
I was gonna say Mario Party rules. Yeah, mine was similar to Max with Freedom Unite for PSP, mostly because Brian and Max were playing it all the time, and I'd come over to Brian's house and I'd be like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're playing this obscure Japanese game you've never heard of.
And this was middle school for you as well, right? So
Mhm.
this is like when the game released.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I, at the time, we were like all playing ad hoc mode right on the PSP and all connecting to each other's like local lobbies and just hunting a bunch of stuff. I don't have as strong memories as Max does about like feeling kind of out of depth of it. I just remember having like a ton of fun and just being totally captivated by the world and the art style and the music and whole thing. And it was probably one of the first games that all of us like played to that level, like collectively. I mean, this was like kind of around, when Halo 2 and COD were like first becoming a thing, but like this was a totally unique experience, I think, for the time, where you're just like, you have to go over to your buddy's house, and like be on the local network to all interact. I mean, it's basically like a LAN party without the cables, but when you're that age, like, you just take it for what it is. And I just remember having incredible memories doing that. But I never was really bothered by the super intensity of it, at least in my memory. But I also didn't play as often as everyone else did. I never got to like the super late game stuff until much later on in life, because I just felt like, I wanted to play it an X amount, and I remember Brian and Max wanting to play it twice as much, and they're like, "You want to come over and play Monster?" I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'll play with you guys next week, but I just didn't have that, like, it didn't have that hold on me in the same way, so I didn't get to experience all of it, the goods and the negatives of being destroyed by the depth of the game as like a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, however old we are.
You were too busy getting kill-taculars in Halo 2. Well, that was more important for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pretty good at Halo 2. Pretty good.
Man.
I would like to add something.
Yeah.
I just want to add to my a core memory for me is, I think I really remember early on, the earlier games, the feeling of entering the Forest and Hills zone, where that's like the first map that you experience, and you kind of exit the camp, and there's like the swell of the music as you're looking out over like the hills and over the river.
Welcome to Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really cool moment. I still remember that. I still get that feeling when you go into the Forest and Hills map, some of the older games, where you see the swell of music and you're like, man, this is where it started.
Wow.
Yeah, the atmosphere is just like, it's on a penultimate level. It's truly one of the best franchises at creating like a feeling of grandeur and epicness, and you're the hero in the story.
Yeah. Music definitely plays a huge part in the Monster Hunter franchise, and like you would think just from like it's all Ryan. Yeah, you would think from just like the box art or something like that, like it would be some sort of like harsher music, but a lot of it is very like orchestral and ground swelling and crescendos. It's like very beautiful, and it's like such a good fitting sound score for the Monster Hunter series. And then you get those kind of more upbeat things when it comes to the actual monsters themselves, which is very like I think at one point Max just was like, hey, like I have like a jazz soundtrack for like all the Monster Hunter like monsters or something like that, and it was super cool. Yeah, it's so cool listening to a different rendition of it.
It's like a permanent edition in my.
Is it on Spotify?
Playlist. It is.
Oh shit!
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can send that. I can send that your way.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I would love that. Yeah. Cool. So, what about you, Brian? Where did you start?
Yeah, very similar to Max. I believe we played together, Ryan as well. Monster Hunter Freedom on the PSP was the very first title that I got started on. Can't say that I'm a true OG in playing, on the PS2 with the first Monster Hunter, or ever importing, I think, the Japanese exclusive Monster Hunter DOS. I don't think we ever got that in North America. But getting the start with Freedom and having very similar issues that Max was describing, and Ryan as well. We're both so young at that point. I think it was 2006 when that game came out. And I had no idea, of course, how the armor system would work, but I was thankfully more into the fashion hunting aspect of it early, thankfully, and I would always wear the full sets. I didn't even bother to use my namesake as the mix set maniac to do any of that that early on, thank goodness, or else I would have had a whopping 0 skills on my armor at that point if I did do that. So, but I do have a fun story I will mention with Freedom, and I had gone right after purchasing the game to travel out of the country, and I think Ryan and Max might remember this, but it was these moments where I would be calling internationally to check in with you guys every, maybe a couple weeks, and hearing how you guys are doing, and you guys were all together playing, multiplayer, and I'm sitting here going, damn, I'm playing this by myself, but I got to work extra hard. I got to, get prove and show off how far I got without them. And I also got slapped by Young Kutku. I think I remember getting to Rathlos at some point and timed out. Like I hit the full 50-minute and barely caused it to flinch. I was running greatsword. It was miserable. But I remember coming back into the U.S., rocking a full set of the Sarios armor, which I really think looks amazing design-wise. Thinking like, man, that's got to be like end game. I'm so elite. And coming back to see that you guys were way further than I had even come close to getting. And I was like, damn it, if only I had a group to play with at the time. But it really does go to highlight just how much fun and amazing that those games in general have been. And I can't really think of a lot of games I played in that age where it was multiplayer but more cooperative focused. We know there's a lot of competitive with Halo and Smash Brothers and other games like that, but it was the first kind of cooperative experience that I really enjoyed. I did, of course, play Freedom 2, Freedom Unite. I think I have somewhere in an attic one of the little pre-order GameStop bonuses for Freedom 2. It was a little Poogie stuffed animal. I think we have that one of those laying around. But yeah, I would say probably played most titles since, but Freedom was where I also started.
Yeah. For me, I have a very, I guess, I have a variation of where I kind of started with Monster Hunter. Of course, I never played any of the PS2 titles. I do remember seeing my friend play probably Freedom 1 on a PSP, like at my cousin's house randomly. He let me just play it. I had no idea what I was doing, of course. I was just in a grassy field just swinging at stuff. And I was like, I don't know what this is. Fast forward to, I want to say, the beginning of our friendship, Brian. It was probably in around 2009-ish, 2010. I remember going over to your house and you were showing me, you're like, hey, like, there's this game that we play. Like, me, my buddy Max, and like Ryan and stuff like that. We all play this game and it's like really cool. I think you might enjoy it. It happened to be Monster Hunter Tri for the Wii. And I remember you showing me like the Legaia Chris and stuff like that. And I was like, I watched it. I was like, yeah, it's okay. Like, at the time, of course, I was very into competitive Smash. I was playing just a variety of games like Fight Night and stuff like that, and whatever was going on at that time. So I was like, yeah, like Monster Hunter's cool, but it wasn't for me. I think you made me end up picking up the game, or I picked up the game and I played about less than 10 hours, which is literally nothing in a Monster Hunter title. It wasn't until we bought our Vitas that I picked up Freedom Unite. And that learning experience of just playing the game for the first time was a shit show. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. There is a lot of reading. I have ADHD, which I know was undiagnosed at the time, so I could not get through any tutorial the entirety of the game. Like, I'm like, how are you getting all these resources? Oh, you got to build your farm and get your honey and all this stuff. I didn't even know how the game worked. But you guys kept playing it. We had nothing on our Vita for like the first year besides like Luminous or Hot Shots Golf. So I was like, all right, day one purchase. Like, this is gonna make my Vita purchase worth it anyways. Just playing along with you guys. I remember specifically trying to learn the game and sitting down on my couch one afternoon and just banging my head against fighting the Jan Garuga. And I was like, this shit is, why is it like one-shotting me? Like, I don't get what's happening. And I just ran into that wall to the point where I was like, well, I want to play this game. I bought this $250 fucking Vita. Like, I have to get the most out of this. I ended up like hunting that thing to extinction and wearing it all over. I think I made every single weapon from the Jan Garuga that I can make. And I was just decked out in purple. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait to show these guys what I did. Like, I'm going to be so fucking cool. The next time we meet up, you guys are in like you guys have already played this game before, so it's like I was like, oh, they don't even know. Like, I got this whole ass set. And then I saw what you guys were rocking. And I was like, I still don't know what I'm doing. But it was definitely a good time. Yeah, you mentioned earlier for the mix set Maniac, you weren't doing that before. I was doing that because I was like, oh, all these pieces of armor have different things. But of course, me not reading like the pamphlet or like the manual, I was like, oh, I just pick a piece of each armor and it'll give me that set. Of course, if you're new to Monster Hunter or have only played the most recent games, that's kind of how it works now. It did not work like that back then. You had to have above a 10-point threshold for the skill to activate.
Depending on the skill.
Depending on the skill. Yeah. So I thought I had all these skills and all these buffs, and I was just the dummy, just with a Diablo's helmet and Narga like chest plate and just nothing mix matching anything. And yeah, I would say for if you aren't like used to this type of game where there's a lot of reading and stuff like that, it was definitely kind of daunting. Like the learning curve for Monster Hunter was definitely new for me, for my gaming library at the time, coming from a lot of like fighting games and like Tekken and sports games and stuff like that. This was definitely my first kind of like action RPG with RPG elements and stuff like that. But it was great. Like, I'm glad I stuck with it because we ended up getting super into it. By the end of Freedom Unite, I think we mentioned it earlier, me and Ryan, like, we learned how to play the game, and I learned how to like fight like the title monster for that one, which is the Nagakuga. And it was a blast, like seeing where my journey started of not knowing what anything was, not even understanding how I get my farm going, to, you know, being able to make a mix set that made sense in that game. And I think that's the great thing about Monster Hunter, is that there's so much game in it that it allows you to really play the game however you want to, and it really allows you to like express yourself how you want to within its world. So yeah. Is there
It's got a great community too.
Yeah. Oh, great community. Everyone's super helpful. Everyone likes learning stuff together, and yeah, it's such a good game. Such a great. This is why we're doing this podcast, because this is definitely a franchise worthy of singing its praise.
I do want to say that you mentioned Ass earlier, and I want to give a shout out to the. I think the first time we played Freedom Unite on the PSP, I don't think we were as successful as when we returned to play it on the Vita. At which time, like, this sort of community was more developed. There were more tools available. Athena's armor set search was a big one, because that's penetrated the veil in terms of understanding how to optimize mix sets, and I think that was when we really sort of tore the game open and started unleash the potential of the heavy bowgun and all sorts of other crazy mix sets that we're rocking.
Yeah, I would say there's many nights from Freedom Unite, or it would be just, all right, let's go to Brian's house, play, and then just play and see what happens. And then literally the sun is coming up. We're like, fuck, we've been playing this since like 6 p.m. yesterday. Yeah.
And still didn't get the drop that you wanted.
Oh my god, yeah. And the RNGesus, we're like, don't say it out loud because it's not going to show.
Just one gem, just one carapace. It's fine. Just one skill plus. It's all I need just to get the last set of armor, and then I can get the full skill unlocked.
Yeah.
Someday, one of the developers at Capcom is going to slip up and admit that the Desire sensor is real.
There is a microphone that exists.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. So many great memories across all those titles. Yeah. Is there any? Do you guys have a like specific favorite memory from any title?
Man,
there's so many.
I mean, obviously, like, the originals were great, but I thought it was like World was like kind of prominent in my memory as well, which may not be like what comes to mind at first, but I don't know. It was great to like finally, because I've never really built a gaming PC, So to like have like a console kind of like fully realized like Monster Hunter with like at the time like really modern graphics and like a big like hub, and it just felt like the culmination of everything leading up to it, because for a long time Monster Hunter was like relegated to handhelds, and then even when it came to console it was on like the Wii, and so it was just really cool to see like what Monster Hunter could be. Because it took kind of a half step back with Rise, especially because it was kind of built out for the Switch, which was halfway through its life cycle at that point. But it's like Worlds was like such a cool thing too, and it was also one of the first times that I got to reach end game. Because when we were growing up, I just didn't grind it as hard as you guys, so it was cool to play Worlds and just like feel like, oh, this is what like this game has the potential to become. So hopefully, Wilds is just an expansion on that idea of like big open maps, like tons of monsters, beautiful graphics and stylization and art for all the different monsters and assets and everything. But yeah, Worlds is one of my favorites just because it went from being this like childhood favorite to like, oh, like this game still has gas in the tank, and this is what it can do if it's really kind of unburdened by
like
technical limitations.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely a huge eye opener for, I guess, everyone, because Worlds really blew up Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter's popularity in the West.
Yeah. I mean, I have a ton of fond memories of just the sheer feeling of triumph that we would get as a group when you would get just destroyed by some new monsters, new endgame hunt, and then you finally complete it, and you complete it as a group, and you knew you all contributed and helped. Pat being there to give me more shots from my bow gun, and Max using a hunting horn buffing us if that was his weapon of choice at the time. It was just, it was one of the first games before playing something very difficult like the Souls series where I truly got a sense of just success and triumph from beating a very difficult obstacle. It's great.
Just to quickly add to Brian's thing, it was probably one of the first games that we ever played where you had to sit down for 40 minutes at a time to do the thing. Like once you started it, like that was like you had to commit to that. Like there weren't a lot of games that like offered that.
Yeah, it was essentially
at the time
like early 2000s like raids, but handheld.
Yeah, or even like battle royales. Like you have to commit at least 25 minutes if you want to win. So it's most games. It's offline single player and you can pause whenever you want, or multiplayer games that were like 5-minute rounds. So to like commit as a group PvE like 40 minutes or something, it's kind of still a wild concept, but it was definitely wild 10-15 years ago.
I mean, for me, like I have so many fond memories. A lot of the memories being the host that's usually the first to cart is definitely being like knocked off my ass from like a ledge or something. I'm dead as soon as I touch the ground, and Brian or Max comes through with a life powder like midair, and I'm like, oh, we fucking made it. Like definitely those moments. I still love the fact that we found out I got a shiny drop for like a Burkidios gem or something like that in 3 Ultimate, and that was the one thing I needed. I think we spent all night playing Burkidios, and it was the one thing I needed. I got it from a slime from the floor, and we looked it up. It was a 2% drop rate, and we're like, oh my god.
Got it.
Yeah, it was definitely so many. We mentioned earlier the Gravios just like loading screen one shot. Just back when there was loadable areas and stuff like that. But I think the thing that I love the most about Monster Hunter is the fact that it is definitely something that the Dark Souls community can kind of get behind. Is like you come in and you start and you feel so weak, and through repetition and perseverance you end up learning the monster's pattern, and you end up like just destroying it in the end, but you have this appreciation for it because it's like, man, it took a lot for me to figure this out to get to where I am now, and we've played countless hours of Monster Hunter games throughout the franchise, and like that still gets me every single time that we play even the same recurring monster from an older game, you know.
Or we'll have to do a little like shout out to another fond memory for me, for all my fellow bowgun players out there in the early games. 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, I believe, when you were able to drop monsters that were flying away out of the sky with that right place shot. Oh man, and the way the camera, cutscene starts after it hits the ground, it was just, I live for that.
Yeah,
I was
you still pop off for those moments. Oh man, yeah. Once we start getting some new Monster Hunter footage in here while the podcast is going, you guys are gonna hear all the Monster Hunter sounds.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Mex?
I think I've really too many to narrow down to a singular moment. So many epic moments. I mean, it's like thinking back to like Freedom Unite fighting the Shin Gaoren, where you get hit when you're in its mouth, and then you have like 5 to 6 seconds of falling before you're dead. You have 0 health, but you have that 5 to 6 seconds until you hit the ground before you actually cart.
Yeah.
And then so that's kind of the moment where everybody's scrambling for the life powder to bring you back from death.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think one of my favorite things was, like you were mentioning, like talking about Dark Souls and feeling like the improvement. I think one of my favorite things is actually doing the Deviant Monster quests in Generations.
Oh yeah.
Because that's like the most clear example of like ramping up difficulty. Because every game has, like there's the low rank version of a monster, and then the high rank, and then maybe a G rank or master rank version. The Deviant Monsters, it's literally like Silverwind Nargacuga 1. And then you do Silverwind Nargacuga 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and beyond. And every level that you go up is harder. And so, like, by the time that you get to the end, like, you have to do each one of those levels multiple times to get the tickets to make the armor set. And a lot of those armor sets were very good. And so by the time you got to, like, the highest level of the armor set, the difficulty is such where, like, one mistake is death. But you've fought the monsters so many times under such punishing conditions that it's like you could do it with your eyes closed. And it feels so rewarding to get to that point. It's like the most clear ramp up of difficulty that I can think of, or at least it felt so satisfying at the time.
Right, definitely. Well, I want to thank all you guys for coming to help us out in creating this podcast. I know it's been a long time coming. I personally have wanted to do this for a long time, but haven't been able to, and I'm just really happy with what we've accomplished here tonight. So thank you guys for coming through, of course, being part of this podcast, and dedicating some time out of your guys' busy schedule to be here. Of course, fellow hunters, this has been episode 1 of the Palibros. Thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show, and until next time, happy hunting.
Take care.